Well, hello again, all my YouTube video subscribers. Thanks once more for tuning in to my world of classic dirt bikes. Now, in this particular video, we'll be looking at a few classic CCMs from my video archives. We will look at each bike in turn, and hopefully I will be able to share with you a bit of background on each of these selected machines. Okay, the first bike we are going to take a look at is this fantastic looking 1972 608cc Clews Stroka. Now, this particular bike belongs to Ian Ridleys from Cumbria. Now, Ian has many of these classic BSA and CCM machines in his collection, and this is just one of the superb bikes from Ian's collection. Now, this particular bike is one of the last 6 Clews Strokas ever made by the CCM factory. Now, when the CCM company first started producing motorcycles, the very first batch of bikes built by the newly formed CCM factory in Bolton were not actually badged as CCMs. These were, of course, called these Clews Strokas. Now, one of the very first of these bikes from the factory in April 1972 with frame number B3, it used a BSA B50 motor and was bought by the legendary Cumbrian motocross racer Mike Barnes. Now, Mike Barnes loved the initial Clews Stroka so much that he went and bought himself another bike from the Clews factory and bored it out to 608cc. And Mike later recalls that it was definitely the quickest bike on the track at that time. Now, of course, Mike had a lot of successes on his initial Clews Stroka back in the day, and he won several races on it in 1972, and later that year Clews then displayed the 608cc bikes at the Bellevue Stadium in Manchester for the princely sum of £595 each. Now, of course, by this time it was clear to Alan Clews that he could sell more of these fantastic Clews Strokers than he could actually make. Such was the interest in these revolutionary machines. But it was about this time that Alan took the big decision to become a full-time bike builder, and the Clews Competition Machines factory was born. Now, the particular owner of this machine, Ian Ridleys, has many more of these fantastic machines in his vintage bike collection, and I hope to feature more of Ian's bikes in the future on my YouTube channel. Now, of course, this machine has been fully restored to a very high quality finish by Ian, although it is still an original machine from 1972. Now, this bike has also won Ian many awards and trophies at local motorcycle gatherings and motorcycle shows up and down the country in the last few years. Okay, that's Ian Ridleys' 1972 Clews Stroka. Now, if you're a regular visitor to my YouTube channel, this featured bike will need no introduction whatsoever. This, of course, is the late Norman Barrow's Works CCM. Now, Norman started his racing career on Greaves machines back in 1963. He then had a short spell riding for Matisse before then heading into the CCM Works racing team. Now Norman also rode a Myco for Bill Brown and climbed as high as 7th in the British motocross riders rankings. Now of course the bike we see in this video clip was the actual CCM factory bike that Norman raced at the end of the 1975 and first half of the 1976 British motocross racing season. Now as a racer on the track, Norman was always noted for his hard charging and attacking and exciting riding style. Now of course this is not a showpiece, this bike is regularly used and now ridden by Norman's son Tony. Now one of the other little stories of this particular bike is that this is the machine that Norman famously broke in half at the 1976 500cc British Grand Prix at Donington Park. Now if you could look closely, you can just about see where the CCM factory repaired the frame right here at the headstock for the following weekend's race. It's certainly comforting to know that Norman's old race bike is not parked in a garage somewhere gathering dust and is actually still being raced and still winning races with Norman's son Tony in the saddle. Now in his later years, Norman was a very keen mountain biker and used the long winter motocross downtime periods to keep himself fit for the coming season. Although sadly we lost Norman to a cycling accident in December 2011. So I hope you enjoyed that quick look at Norman Barrow's works factory CCM. Now we can't hear this bike starting, but we can let you see the bike in action with Tony on board at the 2018 Kendal Classic Revival Scramble. Okay, our next classic CCM to be featured is this very rare 1978 CCM which belonged to Austin Clews, and this particular bike was the very machine that Austin used to race as a schoolboy back in the day. Now Austin Clews of course was the son of the late Alan Clews, who just passed away recently. Now Austin was just 13 years old and a promising schoolboy in the early 70s. Now in the early 1970s, schoolboy motocross organisations allowed 200cc 4-stroke bikes to compete with all the 2-stroke 125s. Now, of course, Alan Clews would have loved his son Austin to be competing in the schoolboys class on a CCM, although he never had a small enough machine in order to let Austin take part. Although at this time Alan Clews was already experimenting with a 250 CCM. So what Alan did was he then took the experimental 250 he had built 6 years earlier and sleeved the cylinder down to 198cc in order that young Austin could race the bike legally within the schoolboy class. Now, when the bike was completed, and despite not having ridden the bike for more than a year, young Austin Clews managed a 5th place on this particular bike the very first time he raced it. Nevertheless, this very rare machine remained a one-off because by 1979 the supply of BSA parts, especially for these B25 motors, were diminishing, and to have them remade would have been far too expensive for the CCM factory. And sometime later CCM would then go on to use the Italian Hero 2-stroke engines in their bikes during 1979 and 1980. Now, this video was filmed at the 2018 Scottish Motorcycle Show, and at the time I was under the impression that this engine that was in the frame was the original 198cc sleeved BSA B25 motor from Austin's schoolboy days, although I did find out later on that this was not the original engine. In fact, everything is original apart from the engine, and I later found out that Austin himself actually has that very unique 198cc engine in his possession, and I am sure Austin is already in talks to have this bike put back into his possession. Nevertheless, it's still a very rare CCM machine and part of the Clews history. In fact, while filming this, I did spot that Austin had his name stamped on the actual swing arm of this machine. Now, with sharp contrast from our last machine, which of course was Austin Clews' 1978 original and totally unmolested CCM, to this beautifully restored 1978 2-valve CCM. Now, this bike has been done by Rob Hughes and has been restored to the very highest of specifications. Now, unfortunately, I'm not in possession of many of the facts and specifications regarding the restoration of this lovely machine, as I only met Rob very briefly at the 2018 Kendal Classic Revival Scramble when this actual video was done. Although our brief conversation did get down to Rob telling me that this is just one of the many superb bikes he has in his current collection, and I have made arrangements to visit Rob's premises during the winter period and try and catch a glimpse of some more of his classic restorations. Now, of course, this machine was built to the very highest of specifications, and as you can see, a lot of time, hard work and effort has went into making this bike as authentic from 1978, as is humanly possible. Now, this bike of Rob Hughes was just one of the fantastic machines I filmed over the weekend of that Kendall Classic Revival Scramble. Now, unfortunately, I never had the time available to get Rob to fire the machine up, because I know that many of my YouTube subscribers love to hear these old bikes running after we've watched them on the video. But in this particular case, I was pressed for time, but I hope to remedy that in the future. So that's Rob Hughes' 1978 2-valve CCM. Now, our final featured bike in this video is Les Calderwood's 1974 580 CCM. Now, I know that this is a bike that many of my YouTube subscribers will be familiar with, but rather than myself rattling on about the intricacies of this lovely machine, I'm going to let the rider, Les Calderwood, tell you all about it.
Bolted on to the classic 35mm Marashoki forks are a set of specially machined Mako hubs. The engine is a 90 by 90 stroke 572.63 cc's, and it's a new NEB 3-speed gearbox, new clutch and new crankshaft. The fuel system is supplied by a 34mm McCuney carb with a 250 main jet and the 35mm pilot jet. So it's rock shocks dialed into my weight, and they've been shimmed for rebound damping, and it's connected to a chrome alloy frame swing arm system by TJ Plating. The brake system is also Mako machined and fitted with a 58 tooth rear sprocket, running on Dunlop 100 by 100 tires. The graphics are supplied by MXM of Johnston. The guy to see is Alan Reed. These are high quality, hard wearing graphics and stand the test of time. The seat cover is designed from the original 1974 spec, and the cover was also supplied by Alan Reed of MXM Graphics. The Renthal bars are Duro style Renthal bars, and they are complemented with Magura levers and Venhill throttle, and all the cables are Venhill supplied. The exhaust is a two-piece handmade special by Joe Maxwell, and the ignition is a interspan ignition with a runtime of 5,000 RPM, is 4.5 to 5 hours on full charge. The interspan ignition is charged overnight before the meeting, and has a runtime of 5 hours. Sometimes during a race event we would put it on charge for a short period of time and during the lunch interval. The system works well, and it's running on NGK BR8ES spark plugs. The barrel's a definned BSA B50 SS Street Scrambler from 1974. and the casings have all been hand moulded by Joe in silica sand. We're running on Castrol R, and its capacity of this frame is 2.6 litres, and there's its own integral pump and filter system, and the oil's stored inside the frame. The controls are all Van Hill cables and a Van Hill gasser throttle. The carburetor 34mm McCuney is supplied by a twin air system. The rear hub is manufactured by Joe Maxwell and machined Mako hubs similar to the front. This part of the frame is actually a reusable stainless steel filter for the oil system. After each event, we remove the stainless steel filter, gauze filter, and we flush it out and actually use an air line just to blow any bad little impediments that build up there, and replace the Castrol oil with 2.6 litres. This is how you switch the interspan ignition on and off during the race meeting. This little billeted aluminium fitting is for the original Marashoki forks, as they didn't have a forged fitting for the front brake rod. So Joe made that, handmade that, and it works great. The decompression system is designed to drop the 10.1 compression engine and make it easy to start, and it just lifts a little valve on the top of the head. Works perfectly, and this machine is not high compression. We don't run it on methanol, it's run on Shell VMAX. Sometimes I run it on a 50% American racing oil mix, but very seldom. It's not necessary.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this latest video and taking a peek at some of those classic CCMs. Well, we've had a look at Les's 1974 580 CCM. Let's have a listen and see exactly what she sounds like.